Welcome back. This is a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by JP Mason. Unfortunately, you weren't here last week, JP. You were busy with your day job. How did that go?
Well, I mean, I'm always a bit reticent to say stuff about that because people go, "Oh, look at him talking about his job," and dropping names and all that. It's just my job, and it just happens to be something that I love. So, yeah, our company did a festival in Edinburgh called Connect, and it was one of the best weekends of my life, without a shadow of a doubt. It was everything that I want at a festival. Part of me wished I'd been there as a punter, but when you're meeting and getting to chat to some of your favourite acts like Caribou and Mogwai and the National, and obviously I know the Twilight Sad guys, so that was not anything new in terms of seeing them, but it was just amazing. Like the atmosphere was brilliant. People had a great time, and it's something that Scotland's been missing for a while, a festival of that ilk. And obviously Connect first existed in 2007 and 8 down in Inverary, and then it's been on a 14-year hiatus. But it was amazing to see it back, and Chemical Brothers and John Hopkins and all that as well. It's just and the site as well. A lot of people were sceptical about the site being next to the airport, but everyone left raving about it. So it was really, really good and knackering. But I mean, I don't normally check my steps. Somebody said when I hobbled into the hotel bar on the Friday night, have you checked your steps? And I was like, oh, is that button, the red heart? And I clicked it, and I was like, 33,000, and everyone's faces just kind of dropped, and they're like, that's nearly 15 miles. So
wow,
in one day. So
incredible. I'll tell you, I've been driving past that site every single day coming out the studio. And it's that kind of music. My music taste, JP, that I would have loved, but obviously things like social events and that have been at a bare minimum in recent times because things have been a wee bit busy this neck of the woods. Obviously with the studio, a Celtic State of Mind, and the fact that a new book's coming out. And in that new book will include that jersey that's over your right shoulder, which is our latest third effort. What do you make of that?
I like it. I when I saw the little sort of glimpses of it, in the teasers, I kind of thought that looks like it could be smart. And then when they did the reveal, I was like, yeah, I'm into it. And I know when you get it without the sponsor, it kind of does look like a training top, but I don't know. I like it. I wonder how often we'll wear it, if ever. It's one of those ones that just like, it might get one or two airings in the season, but and then it will just become like a kind of anomaly Celtic top. There's been plenty of them.
There definitely has been. By the way, I've just noticed there's a reflection on the Primal Scream poster that's framed behind me. That isn't any kind of images you don't really want to see. It's not like someone's watching something they shouldn't be. That's just a wee edit that's happening. But in case that is bothering you, I'll just move that around there a wee bit. But it's nothing dodgy. That's what I'm trying to say, DP. Nobody in the studio is watching something they shouldn't be, I hope. But yes, there has been a few dodgy jerseys in Celtic's time. Most recently, I think, would be the silver and pink one that we've spoken about before. I've tried to convince people that it's a classic and people will come round to that way of thinking, but nobody ever agrees with that. But there we go, third jersey. Will we be wearing it? Who knows? Maybe in Europe, but we'll have a wee chat about that at some stage during the next hour or so. JP Mason, you were at the game last night. Sum it up for me. I know that you've had a few trips up to Dingwall. I'm not going to start calling it dingers. I've seen that. I think that's a wind up on Twitter. And apparently in Australia, dingers means something completely different. Yeah. Anyway, how was your night last night?
It was good, yeah. Just drove up in the car with a couple of pals. It was it's the first time I've gone up just in the car and not in the bus with, the cans and the bottles flying around, which is also an interesting way to spend a journey up to the Dingwall. But it was one beer in the car was my limit, and then didn't have time to get a pint when we got up there because we got up about 7, maybe 7:10. So with the queues to get in again, there was like pretty hefty queues to get in. They like to make things difficult to get into a football ground. For us, it would seem maybe it's not just us, maybe it's everybody, but it was a bit it was a bit of a rammy to get in, and then obviously saw the team sheet and the 9 changes, and you're kind of thinking, whenever you make that many changes, you always, certainly Celtic games gone past, you always think it's going to be a bit, you lose that kind of rhythm, you lose the shape. Completely different centre half pairing. Welsh and Jens had probably never played together as a centre half.
That's right. That's the first time.
Bernabe making his debut, and Ralston coming in wasn't anything massively surprising. I think most people would have predicted that. And then the midfield, Moy making a start, probably a few eyebrows raised at that, but by the end of the game, even 2 of his fiercest critics in the car that I drove up with had to concede and that he had a really good game, possibly man of the match contender. Actually, I thought it was without being flash. I thought it was just brilliant, like really good, simple things every time, and maybe like 1 or 2 things that he did, mistakes like with passes or whatever. But I think it'd be very harsh to. I've not looked at the Celtic trends or analytics guys' stats on them, but I'm sure they must be quite good in terms of, I don't know, all the lingo that they use. I'm not criticising them. It's just I'm not familiar with the parlay, but pack passes and things like that. I think he did really well from the naked eye. From me as a fan, standing there watching the game sober, he played really well, and to score 4 goals away up there when that it's been a pretty tricky place to go, and you can see we've going to gradually increase our performance levels. And I think Ange Postecoglou said that last night, and that it's gone from being a really tough place to last night we walked away 4-1. Last time was 3-1, so we've improved on our last performance, but with a completely changed side. And you kind of did fear for them when we went 2 in the first half. You're thinking, is this going to be another mauling like Sunday? Incidentally, on Sunday I had the Celtic Twitter notifications in my pocket because obviously I'm running about, ferrying bands to stage and all the rest of it, and my phone just kept buzzing, and I was like, that can't be another goal. That can't be another goal. And I'm looking down, it's like 6-0. I'm like, no way. And there's still like half an hour to go or something. So yeah, you did fear for them last night that it was going to be one of them. But and also on that, I did see a few people. Well, obviously there was the guy in Super Scoreboard that said, we should have sympathy for them and we should have eased off. I'm sorry, but as I said, then I replied to somebody. I was at Rugby Park in 2003 when we lost the league in goal difference.
Yeah,
I've never felt as sick walking away from a ground. It was horrendous. Like only 4 days after Seville as well. So no room for sentiment. And whatever. If a guy loses his job as a result of it, then there was bigger problems at Dundee United than that one result.
See the thing, JP, right? See, when I hear comments like that, and obviously they're ridiculed online, of course they are, but when you hear comments like that, I just wonder, does that person even know football? At no point in any kind of professional sport do you think, all right, it's your shot, or I'm not going to go too hard on you. It's about, creating something that's the best you possibly could. So it doesn't even enter the psyche when you're 5 or 6 goals up. I'm going to take the foot off the pedal a bit here. What you sometimes see in sport is a bit of sportsmanship, gamesmanship, a bit of patter and all that on the ground. But we've seen it like keep you uppies and all this kind of stuff, Jay. But you don't show sympathy for the opponent. Absolutely not. And that was just, for me, looking back on seasons past where we've lost league titles on goal difference, and then you look at all the other results in that season, I think that was the result. We could have scored an extra goal, or we could have scored a penalty, or whatever it may have been, JP. So no, absolutely put them to the sword. I was wanting 10. I was wanting as many as we possibly could. And all that chat around Celtic scoring 10 under Ange Postecoglou, it started last season. There was some discussions on Acsom. We're going to score 10 goals. We're going to put somebody to the sword. And I thought it was all a wee bit pie in the sky, to be honest. But then you see it actually materialising in front of your eyes against Dundee United. And I've mentioned I was at that Aberdeen game, the 9-0 game, the route when Mark McGee was in charge of Aberdeen. I think it was 9-1 against Arbroath back in the early 90s when Danny McGrain was the manager of Arbroath. And So there are occasions where you get to that point and you become free scoring and you think, we've got to do it now because it doesn't happen that often. But I'm of the view, and even watching the game last night in stages, thinking we are going to, pick teams apart this season more often than once or twice as well. The goal difference at this stage is incredible. I know last night obviously was in a cup, but it's 6 wins in 6. You started off by talking about Aaron Moy, so let's stick to the Aaron Moy chat before we get on to some of the transfer gossip, which I think will come to fruition, some of it anyway, at some point today. So Aaron Moy, he's a guy who's come in with no much of a fanfare, JP, because he was unattached, he's a free transfer, so instantly he's unfashionable. But then you look at his pedigree, and he comes in with a very, very good CV. Some pundits out there are saying, if he was with the club, he'd have cost you a few £1,000,000. And I was very much on the other side of that argument. I kind of thought, well, this is a no-brainer. When we were talking about him coming in, this is a no-brainer. Of course, Ange Postecoglou knows the guy. He's got elements of the Beaton in terms of his defensive play. He's got elements, some would argue Beaton didn't have that. He's got elements of the offensive play that we've lost with Tommy Rogic's departure. And I think against Dundee United, he showed that, although he wasn't on the park for long. And then last night, he definitely showed that. I don't think he's a starter. I don't think he's a first pick. You might disagree about the game against Rangers. He might not be a starter, but I tell you what, if you're looking at second 11s, and I've seen a lot of chat online, JP, and he's part of that second 11, you're confident in players like Moy coming in, Tony Ralston coming in, maybe even Benji Siegrist. You're confident with these guys stepping into the berth when they're required.
Yeah, I mean, like last night, I wasn't really too fussed about how many goals we scored. Obviously, you as a fan, you want to see goals, but I was more concerned with how the players that came in acquitted themselves and played, and certainly the majority of them. Bernabei did, put a few passes astray, but I mean, that's going to happen. He's a young guy in a completely new environment, starting for a new team. You can't expect these guys to be perfect. There's plenty of other players in Celtic's history that had, fairly innocuous starts and then went on to, like Greg Taylor, for example. Everyone's sort of now accepting Greg Taylor as, a good player as opposed to, we need to get rid of him, ship him out.
Not good enough for Europe. That was always the chat, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, Bernabei played well, but that was more my concern, was that when I saw Moy was starting, I was like, right, okay, he's got a starting jersey. What can he do and how can he influence the game? And I just, like I said, I just thought he really looked in complete control and was always available for a pass, and didn't try to do anything too crazy, but he has actually got quite a good range of passing.
Yeah.
You can see him like just bending the ball in the midfield. He'll chip it over someone's head with pretty good accuracy for someone on the other side of the pitch or whatever, and likes to put a tackle in as well. He's really committed. He's not a pushover in the midfield, and without, I guess, his demeanour, you kind of expect him to be a kind of hard man, but when you see his interviews, he's quite softly spoken and he's quite sort of demure almost, and he's not like that kind of hard man. But you see last night, and I know obviously people will go, oh, it's only Ross County away. That'll be the thing that they insert there to counter any praise that you're giving the guy, but Ross County away was an obstacle that we had to overcome last night, and we had a team and a player in him that was able to do that. So we move on to the next challenge, which is obviously Rangers. But with regards to the midfield for Saturday, I didn't see the game in its entirety on Sunday. I saw the highlights, which were essentially the goals. There was so many goals. There was not really a lot of room probably in the highlights package to fit in how, general play or whatever. But I've asked a few people, everyone was raving about O'Reilly on Sunday, saying he was the standout. And I was like, was O'Reilly as good as he was made out to be? And folk were like, yeah, but Hatate was also a total standout. So I don't think you can see by that midfield of McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly for Saturday.
I agree with that. And I wasn't having a dig at O'Reilly last week, but I did say prior to the Dundee United game, and it was the cause of some derision in the comments that O'Reilly hadn't hit the heights of last season, with obviously the footnote being that we've only got a few games on the board so far. JP goes out and plays an absolute storming performance against Dundee United. But like you said there, Hatate as well, who, by the way, I think, and I've said this a few times, he seems really lean. He's obviously, benefited from the regime that he's got with the pre-season under his belt, and he looks like he means business as well. I'm really keen to bring in as many comments as possible from those getting involved in the chat on YouTube. Paul McLean, McCarthy to Stoke also, to be honest, sounds like a good move, and don't see Celtic being difficult about it. I'm not sure about that, because obviously there is also talk about Mikey Johnston departing. We will have to keep a quota of Scottish-born players at the club as well. So I was kind of the view, JP, that if McCarthy does go, if Johnston does go, McCarthy stays, and that's the kind of way I'm looking at it. I might be wrong. We will have a wee chat about Mikey Johnston and also our new incoming player in Oliver Abildgaard, whose name will ring off the tongue within a few weeks, the more and more we talk about him. The Godfather also on YouTube. If you are watching us on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to our channel, hit subscribe. We go out every single day on a Celtic State of Mind weekday, that is, and every game we cover before, during and after the match as well. We also upload fully produced video features onto the channel. If you're into football, music and culture, this sounds like a script. It's not. I'm just making it up as I go. Then subscribe to the channel. It's free, and the subscription figure is sitting at 19.4 thousand. I just had a wee look at my whiteboard up there. We still do things old school in this studio, JP. 19.4 thousand. We want to get 20,000 ASAP. The Godfather says hopefully get a striker in to replace Ajeti. We will be talking about Ajeti and any other possible moves in and out of Celtic Park. Alan Boyne, that could be the surprise signing, a striker late in the window, says Alan. With regards to a potential striker, JP, the fact that Ajeti has left the building, I was saying that we still needed a central defensive midfielder and a striker. But the more people tell me that, you've got Abada who can play there, Maeda who can play through the middle, you start thinking to yourself, could we run with what we've got up top? What's your take on that now that Ajeti has left?
Haksabanovic kind of came out of nowhere, and he can play through the middle as well. So, he's been given the number 9. I know that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but, he looked good last night. I know, again, only Ross County away, we were 3-1 up or whatever when he came on. But he looked confident. He's definitely got pace to burn, and he's as he said in his presser, he likes tricks as well. But he just looks straight away. He looked like an intelligent football player. Mm-hmm. You can usually sort of tell, and we have been able to tell in the past when you see players straight away. And actually, we said that about Bio, and now I remember people saying, Bio looks a player, and he's just scored the winner for Watford at the weekend, and I don't know what his price is. Do you see how much that Umar Sadiq has gone for? The guy that was at 20 million. The guy that was at Rangers, 20 million,
incredible.
And he was deemed a flop at their club, and I don't know. And see, Shved signed for Shakhtar Donetsk.
I did. How much was the fee there? Any fee given?
It was undisclosed, but as several people have pointed out this morning, he's an absolute shoe-in to score against us, isn't he? Of course he is. We just have a knack of these players that we either have signed or had in our books or nearly signed, and they come back and haunt us.
Remember Bratback did it, Rosenborg.
That was horrible. I remember watching that game in the International Bar and Bistro in Tollcross, Edinburgh, and it was a grim night. I think striker wise, probably they will. I don't know. I'm not privy to anything, but with Postecoglou's kind of veiled hints last night in his post match, you got kind of get the feeling that there's more than one thing happening. It's like when you see so many people going out. I say so many people: Mikey Johnston, Albion Ajeti. That is weakening the squad depth. But a striker coming in, it's a hard sell for somebody, because they're not getting ahead of Kyogo or Giacomakis, so that's that immediately. But when Giacomakis banged into that guy last night and went down and was down for a while, you're immediately going, right, if he's injured, and he did look like he was going to go off injured. That when he hobbled over, I don't know if you saw it in the telly, but like he was proper hobbling over to the sidelines, and I was expecting the board to go up and him to be taken off. And then you go, right, well, if he's off injured, say he's out for a month or 6 weeks or something like that, that leaves us with Kyogo up front, really, as an identified striker.
Hey.
So,
and that's where we were in December, the Boxing Day game against St Johnstone away, JP, and we ended up rushing back Kyogo. He wasn't fit, and he ends up, a reoccurring injury. And we had to bring on Joey Dawson. And I think that's where my whole point came with regards to if Yeti leaves, we need to bring in a striker so we don't have that scenario again. Johnny Kenny's away out on loan. I'm not saying he was an option anyway. He's a bit younger, maybe not ready for the first team. But it shows the lack of depth in that particular position. But we've got other players who can step in. But it was interesting that you brought up Giacomakis. You've already told us your midfield for the game, and we'll probably do this in kind of stages. I agree with you on the midfield selection of Hatate, O'Reilly and McGregor, which basically means that I'm refusing to believe someone like O'Reilly is going to leave today. That's not happening. Absolutely no chance should that be happening, or will that happen? Let's be positive. But talking about a new striker coming in, it's only because we've been able to do the outgoings that we've been kind of crying out for. And if you look at the outgoings so far this pre-season, in one transfer window, JP, we have managed to rid ourselves of not all the wages, but part of the wages for quite a few players who were on big earnings, and also other guys who simply were not contributing. So if someone was to say at the beginning of the window that we'd be able to get rid of and shell out Barkas for a kick-off, followed by Soro, Bolingoli, and Julien and a Yeti, with potentially Mikey Johnston to follow, I think you would be absolutely delighted with that in terms of the business and the outgoings. Let's not talk about the legacy of where that leaves us on a financial level if we compare what we've actually put out for these players compared to what we bring in, because, Bolingoli and Julien have left. Who knows how much we got in for them, but probably under $1 million each. So we've lost a lot of money on these deals, but we had to get these guys out. So what you were saying is right. Sometimes you think about lack of depth, or we've trimmed the squad. We've got ready players that were not contributing, and everybody we're bringing in is contributing to the squad. And I think that has been an incredible achievement in one window, particularly if we were able to move on Mikey Johnston as well. How impressive has the recruitment been since Ange's come in, JP? It's night and day, isn't it?
I mean, it's up there with the best I've ever seen in my lifetime as a Celtic fan in terms of, everyone coming in seems to, be sound, which is obviously a key component of Ange Postecoglou's, criteria for signing a player. You need to be sound. You can't be somebody that's going to, rock the boat in any way, and he makes that judgment on a player. And you can see the togetherness. Like last night, it was great. It was right in front of me. It's been shared online now. Jota and I think it's Hatate, and they're like clapping along with the new Bella Ciao Celtic song, and just Juranovic as well, just playfully kicking Jota up the rear as they're walking in to celebrate with the team after the full-time whistle, and everybody celebrating together. That's great to see. And yeah, I mean the transfers out the way, like Julien going, and I know that it feels like we've taken a massive hit on him, and we have ultimately, because he's been here for 3 years. We bought him for 7 million or whatever, and we've sold him for $1 million. But I think you've got to factor in his injury in that. Like, I don't think there's any way we would have been selling Julian for £1 million had that injury not taken place. I think he would have been playing for a start. He would have probably played a lot more under Postecoglou. But how can you just jettison guys that have done well for you to accommodate a guy that did well 3 years ago? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a kind of past memory now that Julien was a good player for Celtic. I mean, I heard he's picked up a knock already for Montpellier, so I think we had to move on from that, and the Baldi thing was just a complete and utter disaster. I don't know who put their name to that signing, but I mean, I never ever saw anything from that guy to suggest to me that he was a good footballer. Airplane ride in the middle of COVID aside, that guy didn't do it. I mean, that game.
Good choice of words.
Aye. Metaphorical airplane ride. But his game against Rangers at Celtic Park, and I forget which one. It might have been the one where they beat us 2-1 just after Christmas. The one when Gerrard gave it the big hat at the camera.
Yeah.
Baldi was horrendous in that game. Like,
was that the game where Ryan Christie missed the penalty?
I think so. Yeah. From memory, yeah. I think it was the Ryan Kent goal one where he kind of just scooped it in from a corner.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, Baldi never ever did anything to suggest to me that he was worth being anywhere near that Celtic team. But yet there was this train of thought from some people in the Celtic support that he was the best left back that we had at the club, and you're like, nah. I mean, Greg Taylor's proved that he is, for now, the best left back at the club, and will definitely start on Saturday in our biggest game of the season so far, and will very likely start against I can't believe I'm saying this, the European champions on Tuesday. Like, that is, for me, as a Celtic fan I'm 42. Celtic haven't played Real Madrid for 42 years in competitive competition. So it's the one big thing that I've wanted to see. And I can't believe that it's 5 years since we played in the Champions League and our first game back is against them. I can only begin to imagine the atmosphere on Tuesday, because if it had been Leipzig or Shakhtar, obviously it would have been good. But the fact that it's against them is completely and utterly insane. So, yeah.
Well, it kind of all feeds into this journey that we're on with Ange, and I don't mean to sound kind of cliched, but it certainly has been something of a journey. And when we're talking about these players that we've shelled out compared to the guys that have come in, JP, and we'll be talking about quite a few of them as the show progresses, it does show you that it's been night and day since Ange arrived at Celtic. And I know you know a few people in and around the place, and we've been doing a wee project up there in relation to the Celtic jerseys, whereby I've been up there a couple of times. I'll be up there next week. And the people that work for the club are telling you that the whole club, the whole mood around the club has changed since Ange Postecoglou came in. And that's people who don't work in the football department, who don't work day to day with these people, yet the whole vibe, the atmosphere. And I've got to go back to this, because remember, we always banged on about the culture at Celtic. Something's got to change. And it sounds as though he has implemented a culture at Celtic Football Club. And it's not just the guys that he's picking for the game. It's actually permeated through all the departments at Celtic. And for one man to do that is quite incredible. It actually harks back to like an old school management style. And I spoke to a lot of people who played in the 60s and the 70s, and they spoke about managers, JP, who managed the club, not just the team. And, the names are obviously guys like Jock Stein, Brian Clough, Don Revie, Bill Shankly. And it wasn't just about the guys that they put on the park. They managed the whole club. And it's almost as if Ange Postecoglou's had that influence since he came into Celtic. The way that he has bridged the gap between the manager and the fans, because I kind of felt that had fragmented over a period of time. We don't talk so much about the board or any issues at the board, and it's all connected, JP. We talk about the football, the entertainment, new players coming in, getting rid of the old wood. We wish them all the best, all these players leaving the club. There's no doubt Albion Ajeti is a very talented footballer. It just not happened at Celtic. And you hope he goes and scores a bagload of goals and gets a move permanently.
I mean, he will. There's no doubt about it. That's the usual from anybody that leaves Celtic. They go out and suddenly start, tearing up trees where they go. But I mean, it just...
Hopefully Shved isn't one of these guys.
I definitely don't want to see him doing anything unless it's against Real Madrid and Leipzig. He can save his performances.
Do us a favour, wee man. Do us a favour.
Totally. But see on Postecoglou, I watched that. I'm sure everybody has, but I watched that interview with Cy Ferry and and Paul Slane. You know, the open goal, like he's becoming a resident on their show because he keeps winning Manager of the Month, and obviously Manager of the Year as well. But
no bad bit of access. No bad bit of access to Ange. Yeah.
I know. I watched that and I genuinely was like, how could anybody not like that guy? Like, if you're a fan of like whoever, Rangers, whoever, I don't know how you could watch that and be like, you know, he's, well, I was going to say a swear word there, but he's some so-and-so, right? Because he's just sound. Like, he's just like, he's like you say, he's proper old school. And when he talked about, somebody clipped this actually, and he talked about the signing policy and how he had to say to one of his best mates when he was a coach at a club that it would be in his best interest to retire. And he, you know, this is one of his best mates that is sitting across the table from him, and he just pushed sentiment out of the way and was like, no, if this club's going to go forward, it's got to go forward without you. And the guy like fell out with him for a bit, but they're mates again now, and that's it. But I just think there's probably a lot of that going on that didn't happen like that at Celtic, whereby sentiment was priority rather than the football club or the football team.
Sentiment's what kept Neil Lennon in a job.
Probably,
for much longer than he should have been. Probably 6 months longer than he should have been. And it came down to sentimentality, and I think Dermot Desmond said it. You know, that at a club like Celtic, they like to give Celtic people a chance. Whereas what you're saying there is there's a ruthlessness attached to someone like Ange Postecoglou, and there's a ruthlessness attached to Jock Stein. When you talk about guys that played under him, JP, and you know, and they herald him as an incredible coach, man, but they'll tell you some ruthless tales about Jock Stein. I mean, he thought nothing of dropping players, thought nothing of getting rid of players. Bobby Murdoch was 28 when he left Celtic, went on to become a legend at Middlesbrough. When Jimmy Johnston left Celtic, you know, I think he was either 30 or 31 when Jimmy Johnston left the club. And he broke up the Lions very, very quickly. There was no room for sentiment. The two that he kept a hold of was Bobby Lennox and Billy McNeil, who played in... Bobby Lennox played the last time he played competitively against Real Madrid, which is astonishing. He plays in 1980, having made his debut in the early 60s. Talking of which Celtic player made their debut on the 27th of March 1963 away against Kilmarnock, where the score was Kilmarnock 6, Celtic 0. You were talking about introductions to Celtic not being great and not having a fanfare. Which player made their debut in that game, 1963 against Kelly, in a 6-0 defeat?
That's a hammering. Was that a defender?
No. Anything but.
So it's obviously a striker then. I can't think.
Wee Jinky.
Oh, really?
Wee Jinky's debut, 1963, Kilmarnock 6, Celtic 0. And he went on to have no bad career at Celtic.
Yeah.
So you're right, sometimes the introduction of a player isn't what you're going to remember them for. As I said, I'm keen to get the comments in. If you haven't subscribed already, get yourself subscribing to the channel. Dr. Nax, was McCarthy's cameo against Ross County a farewell? I'm not sure. I really am not sure, but there is a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about Stoke being interested in him. Who's just went to Stoke? Alex Neil. Alex Neil will know him from Hamilton Accies. Are people putting 2 and 2 together and maybe coming up with 5? I don't know. Joseph Kelly, hail to all, managed to time my lunch break to catch the start. Superb. I'm delighted that people do that. I had a wee chat last night, JP, with Laura and Alan Morrison after the game, talking to stats. Obviously, Alan's our resident stato. And he's into his analytics, and we were talking about how Acsom has obviously been running for over 5 years now. We go out every day on the stream, but during the lockdown it was a completely different audience that we had because people were in the house, you know. And what we get now is maybe not as big a live audience. People catch up at night and all that. And I said, but it's one of the things, JP, that I don't watch Coronation Street anymore. But I would like to think that if I did fancy it at 7:30 on a night, I could switch it on and there it is. It would absolutely. It was like when you were talking about Neighbours a couple of weeks ago. You want it to be there, right? Sometimes you go through stages, watching it. But that's what Acsom's 12:30 bulletin is. It's there for you whenever you need us, JP. We are going to be on YouTube streaming away. And you know what? I've not watched Corrie for years or EastEnders. but I'd like to watch them at some point in the future. So hopefully they don't end.
There's
And
better,
you know
better
what I mean?
things than that to watch on telly.
I've not had time, JP. Oh,
I've not
seriously.
either. I've got a list of
Man.
none of stuff to watch. People keep adding like TV series.
I
Like,
have to watch that Woodstock 99. I've not seen
oh
that
my
yet.
god, that's mental. That I watched the first 2 episodes, and you know, given the nature of my job, I can only imagine being in my job on that show. I think I would. I might have ran a mile because it was just like the Limp Bizkit set where like people have like ripped down like sort of advertising boards and they're using them to crowd stuff, and then he crowd surfs some of them as well, and it's kind of like the guy's got a song called Break Stuff, and you know the whole audience there were just so charged towards causing absolute mayhem. I mean the crowd movement and all that is just it's absolutely wild, and apparently it gets worse as you go through into episode 3 and 4 where Red Hot Chili Peppers get asked to calm things down and then come back on stage and cover Fire by Jimi Hendrix, and people start setting things on fire.
Oh my goodness.
Funny that, eh?
I'm looking forward to watching that. My mind went back to Reading 2000. I've mentioned this, but I'll mention it because you're on the show. Because Celtic were playing Rangers and it was the 6-2 game, and I was at Reading Festival, which makes me a lesser Celtic fan than any other person who was there, 100%. But I was looking at the bill, JP, right? Because obviously you get the memories and they pop up. And I was looking at the bill for Reading 2000, and I was looking at the Saturday. It was a 3-day festival, and I says to my big brother who I was with, that must have been the day Celtic were playing, because I can't remember seeing any of those bands, any of them, except for maybe Badly Drawn Boy. So we've obviously disappeared at some point to find a pub in Reading. And then my big brother reminded me, Celtic played on the day that we watched Rage Against the Machine. So who knows what happened on Saturday? I've no idea. I remember the Friday vividly. Primal Scream, Oasis. And you know who I saw in the crowd at Super Furry Animals? Mikey Brennan. No. Primal Scream with the Super Furry Animals. Mikey Brennan.
Really?
In the crowd. I recognised them from
Fife.
the studio in Cowdenbeath.
Amazing.
Yep. Incredible, eh?
He's got some of the best stories going, by the way. Like, it's genuinely an absolute legend. A good interviewee for a podcast.
Or even a book. Maybe under a pseudonym. To get the truth. Frank Kennedy, we will be talking about the big Dane, and Dr. Nax, you're prolific on the comments. Haksabanovic looks ready-made for sure. I would like to say that I just thought there was an intent to his play last night. He was very direct, JP. We've obviously, there's been a few players we've brought in, and the transfer fee does not tell you the full story. So Joe Hart comes in as the goalie, right? And we paid little over £1 million for him. I think it was like 1.1 million for Joe Hart. Now, the circumstances around him being available and the circumstances allowing Celtic to buy him are such that all the worlds have aligned, and we've managed to get the player for just over £1 million, JP. Any one of those elements don't fit into place and Celtic don't get that player. I think the same happened with Matt O'Reilly. And, you look at the fee that we paid for Matt O'Reilly, which is just astonishing. Hatate, who I think, there's even more to come from Hatate, and we've paid just over £1 million for the guy. Unbelievable. Juranovic 2.7. Where do you get a Juranovic for under 3 million? Unreal. And then this new player, Haksabanovic, 1.5 due to other issues, other global issues. And it looks as though we're actually going to go for one of his Rubin Kazan teammates and bring in Oliver Abildgaard as well. And I think that when you look at the scouting, the speed at which we do our business, the fact that often you only find out about the player within the days of him signing, JP, we are doing things so differently now under Ange Postecoglou. And for me, there's going to be a lot of players we didn't get, and we won't know about them. But one of the interesting things, and I'm going to ask you about this, that Alan Morrison said to me last night, it got me thinking after the show. He was talking about, don't worry too much, because obviously I've gone on about losing players in this window. And he was like, don't worry too much about that, because the way that Ange manages is that he's a system manager. So if one element is removed, he won't build his team around one player. So if one element of that system's removed, he will buy a player who fits that system. So there will always be a player that he will be able to identify that fits that system, who will have a set of figures that will allow him. And obviously he'll need to meet the criteria in terms of personality and character that Andrew's looking for. He said, so you don't want to lose Matt O'Reilly. You don't want to lose Juranovic. Absolutely not. Who would? However, if they do leave, Ange Postecoglou will find a replacement. And it filled me with a wee bit of confidence, because you just never know in terms of the massive money that might be on offer for some of these players, JP. It is still a slight concern until that transfer window slams shut, though. Do you think we'll get through it unscathed with outgoings?
I mean, it seems that way. There's not been any, I know there's been the Man United links to O'Reilly, which seem to have come from the Manchester Evening News, so it doesn't seem like it's come from nowhere. At least it's obviously close to the source. You obviously keep an eye on Fabrizio Romano's output, because he seems to be on the money, and has been on the money with, I'm going to say, Abildgaard, because I've got very, very limited Scandinavian knowledge, but I think it's Abildgaard. If somebody
sounds better than whatever I was saying.
If somebody has Scando patter that they can correct me on that, that's fine.
Somebody will correct you even if they don't, JP.
Oh, I know. The nature of the beast, but I think the camaraderie looks so great. I mean, even the McCarthy thing. I looked at McCarthy when he celebrated with Forrest last night after his goal, who incidentally I thought took his goal really well and looked good when he came on. Yeah. Again, people go, oh, it's only Ross County away. You can only play what's in front of you. And I do think James Forrest will come up. I never like making these big, bold predictions, but I do think James Forrest will come up with a big moment this season, somewhere along down the line, that will make a lot of people go, maybe kind of backtrack a little bit on this Forrest is done patter, because I don't think he is done. He
had a big moment last season. He scored against St Johnstone in the semi-final of the league.
No, I know. I'm not saying that it's been ages since he's had a big moment, but I just think, I think he's still got something to offer. I don't think that he would have been signed on that contract. I don't think it. Put it this way: we're talking about sentiment and sympathy. I don't think James, it might, as much as it might look like he was given that contract to sympathy, I don't think it was. I don't think it was, oh, we'll just give you another deal because you've played at Celtic for so long. Postecoglou said he likes to have people round about. God, my phone is going absolutely mental in my pocket. Sorry. I
think it's playing haywire with your Wi-Fi whenever I get your messages.
But he said he likes to have people around it. What the hell is going on, man?
Have you just signed somebody?
No. I don't know. I've lost my train of thought now, because
we're talking Jamesy Forrest, and now you're talking about sympathy and sentiment.
Yeah,
now,
he's not been signed.
Sometimes say I'm over sentimental when it comes to Jamesy, because I want to see him playing 500 games. He's not far off it, right? I want him to see him scoring 100 goals and getting 100 assists. A lot of the stats have started trickling out. 14 consecutive seasons he's scored goals. He scored big goals. Unless he's got the ability, I wouldn't be saying that. I wouldn't have someone at the club through sentimentality, right? And I think that he's there, on merit. I don't think we can call him injury prone, because if he was injury prone, then those who work in the science team and fitness and conditioning, who I'm sure would have been spoken to before he was given a new extended deal, JP, wouldn't have ticked the boxes. They wouldn't have said that he's capable. I mean, the last 2 seasons he's been hindered by injury. Alan pointed out last night that and his age has probably slowed him down a bit, and that's all to be expected. But I still think he can contribute. I think he's a good squad player to have.
And likewise, McCarthy. I know he's not had anywhere near the game time that he probably would have wanted, but he looks to be a popular member of the squad as well. And I know it's not all about, having, sound people about the place that aren't going to kick the ball, but I think he can still play games as well. He looks in good shape, when he came on.
Yeah.
It does look like, and I don't know, you just think about how much you would have to pay for somebody like that. And with Liam Shaw, I know Liam Shaw's nowhere near the first team, but like he's obviously going to, I think, go out on loan as well. Again, are we that, what's the word? Are we that full of choice in the midfield that we can let someone like McCarthy go? I think it's maybe the same sort of thing as looking for an extra striker to play. If Giakoumakis was to get injured last night, you need a striker as backup. If one of the midfielders was to get injured, Hatate or whoever was to get injured, then who's gonna step in? I know you've got Moy there as well, but we're going to have a lot of games. We've progressed to the next round of the League Cup. We're in the Champions League. Obviously, we'll be looking to go the distance in the Scottish Cup as well. And then you've got a busy calendar because of the World Cup. Everything's kind of squashed, isn't it? So, the like Ange said, the emotional toil that takes out of a player like these games, especially the Champions League as well. You might be playing a player in a Champions League night, and then that player doesn't play at the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, to have that depth of squad, it isn't about having a team that you play in the League Cup or a team, in the cup competitions. It's just about prioritising. So what I think happened last night is one of two things. He's prioritising obviously for the weekend, but he wants to get minutes and legs. So he wants Ralston so that, if there's an injury to Juranovic at any point, he won't be ring rusty. You can put Ralston in. I think we've seen it last season when he'd been out for a few weeks. Ralston, he came back in at Fir Park and he wasn't great. And it's because you're in that groove, you're in that there's a momentum there as well. But you're just kind of off it a wee bit. And in order for guys like him and Moy and probably Bernabe as well and others to ensure that they can step in, you've got to give them games. Even Welsh, I thought Welsh came in last night and looked brilliant when you consider that his last appearance was against Aberdeen on the opening day of the season, a game in which he scores. Last night he hit the bar after how many minutes? 2 minutes. He's hit the bar. He almost scored his second goal in 2 appearances.
We hit the bar again, didn't we? We hit the bar twice.
Twice in the first 5 minutes, And I think Welsh, every time he gets the ball, he's always looking to do something positive. He's always looking for an offensive pass. He's never looking to pass it back. And if there's something not on, he seems to find himself a bit of room and he goes for a bit of and he makes up 10, 15, 20 yards and then he makes that pass. And I think that Welsh is one of these guys that's often written off as well. Do we have an issue with homegrown players? Did they get a wee bit more stick than others? Maybe. In Mikey Johnston's case, I think it's down to performance. I don't think there's enough performances there to stand up for him now, and he will depart, but I don't think it'll be permanent. There's chat that he might end up going to Belgium. Was it this morning? There was chat that he was going to go to the club.
Vitoria Guimaraes, is it not?
Yeah. Is that who we signed Baldi from? Amido Baldi?
I can't remember, but I do remember, did we not play Vitoria Guimaraes in a European game in the 90s?
Did we? I'd need to check that, JP, because all I'm thinking about is a story that Danny McGrain told me. Now, Danny's funny, isn't he? He's really, really dry, and he'll say things and you're creasing up and he doesn't understand why you find it funny. But I was talking to him one night and the question came in actually from the audience. So whenever I do one of these in conversation with or an audience with, I never hand the mic out because by the second half of the night, people have had a few sherbets in that, JP, so it can get a bit fruity out there. So you'll probably never get your mic back. So what I ask people to do is just tweet with a hashtag, and then we can check the tweets as they come in, and obviously we can ignore the ones that you cannot ask Danny McGrain in front of a live audience. But there was this one that came in, and it was, you've been a coach at Celtic since Wim Jansen took over. 1997, Danny McGrain's been back at Celtic. He's been at Celtic longer as a coach than he was as a player. Astonishing. Who's the worst player you've ever coached? And everybody's shouting names and all the rest of it. And he says, Amido Baldi. He wasn't a footballer. He was absolutely murder. And he would do simple things like take him out at half time in front of the goals, JP, and throw the ball at him and say, just put it in the goal. No goalkeeper, just put it in the goal, son. And he couldn't hit the target. So Danny McGrain's scathing words on Amido Baldi. Hopefully Amido's not watching this. But if it was the 1980s, I think Baldi would get into not the view as they embarrassed the hoops, according to Danny. But Guimaraes, that was the team that we bought him for a few million.
We did play them 29th of September 1998. So it would have been under Venglos. First round of the UEFA Cup. 2-1 at Celtic Park, 2-1 away.
Well remembered.
No, that's not remembered. I looked it up.
Celtic Wiki.
Aye, that's not Celtic Wiki, the Celtic Bible online. I just knew from memory because that would have been my first European game as a season ticket holder.
Right.
Because that was the season that I got my season ticket, the first time, like under Venglos. So but I mean that's a good move for Mikey Johnston. I don't know how good they are as an outfit, but I mean I'm sure playing and living in Portugal is not a bad place to go. It's not as if he's going to the back of beyond or anything like that. It's a pretty nice country to live in, and hopefully
certainly not as bad as some of Ball and Goalie's loan moves before we managed to ship him out.
That's true. But I mean, hopefully he just gets a run of games and plays 20, 30 games for them and proves what he can do, because he's never had an opportunity to do that at Celtic. He's either been injured or he's just come up against competition in front of him that he's got no chance of getting in, or he's been played in the wrong position, i.e. up front at Ibrox, when he was kind of not hung out to dry, but I mean, he's not a striker. Do you know what I mean?
What do you think? What do you think when you look at the departures, JP? Right, and you've got Mikey Johnston, who at some point was deemed to be a hugely talented prospect, and we were quite excited about him. Karamoko Dembele, of course, generational talent. Never really done it for Celtic, and even Ewan Henderson, 3 guys who have come through the academy football, JP, who haven't done it at Celtic, and whose Celtic careers seem to just taper off and they leave the building without much of a fanfare. Does it imply that there's a bigger issue under the surface with regards to developing young players? I
mean, yeah, because there's been a lot of problems at Celtic in the last few years, so that's probably one of them, but Ange Postecoglou is slowly but surely addressing, everything at the club. Like you said earlier on, he's becoming a manager of the club as a whole. Mm-hmm. So he's obviously, his priority is the first team, but I'm sure he's doing things behind the scenes to make sure that we do have, likes the B team playing the same system as the first team. I've been to one B team game, can't claim to be an expert on the players there and that squad and anything, but if they're used to playing the system, then it kind of makes sense that you'd be able to go and pluck somebody from there at some point if needed and drop them in a game, if you feel that they're good enough. Incidentally, Baldi did come from Vitória Guimarães.
There you go.
You're right. But see, after he left Celtic, he played at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 clubs after Celtic. Went to Vasaland Beveren on loan, scored 1 goal. Then he went to Hapoel Tel Aviv on loan, scored no goals. Metz, no goals. Benfica Luanda, 5 goals. Maritimo, no goals. Tondela, no goals. Kukesi, 2 goals. Al Nazir, no goals. Persebaya, 5 goals. PSM, which just sounds like a made-up club, 6 goals, and finished his career at Ho Chi Minh City and scored 3 goals. So a decorated career.
Just a goal-scoring machine. What age is he now?
He's
not as old as you and me, is he?
No, he's 31.
31 and he's retired.
Yeah, stopped playing 2 years ago.
Big Baldi. If you're tuning in, do you fancy coming on for an interview?
He does love Patter on Twitter though. I've seen him getting involved when we're playing big games or whatever. He likes a wee pro Celtic tweet. So
we'll call him a cult hero. Okay. He scored against Liverpool, did he not? He scored against Liverpool in a friendly. Sure he did.
I was going to say, it wasn't competitively, that's for sure.
Was that not done in Wembley or something? Anyway, I'd need to check the Bible, the Celtic Bible. Kevin Mullen, afternoon lads, Big Ange is fast becoming my favourite second dad. He's the man in Ange we trust. What a time to be a Celtic fan. Yeah, it is feeling good at this moment in time, and it doesn't look as though it's a flash in the pan. Frank Kennedy, what a great performance and result. 9 changes and still a comfortable win. 9 has become a feature. We score 9 against Dundee United, we make 9 changes, and it doesn't slow down. Blah, boy, if talking music, talk Paul Heaton. I seen the Beautiful South playing once. I'm sure it was at T in the Park back in the 90s. And they were tremendous. I've always liked Paul Heaton's politics as well, JP. Is it somebody you've ever met? Yeah, I think he's got a wee liking for Celtic.
He does that. Well, I only know that from social media and all that, but I like that thing he did for his 50th birthday where he put money behind all the bars, like our select bars. So I think it was Sleazy's in Glasgow, and if you were quick off the mark, and you could have a pint on him on his 50th birthday.
Great idea.
Really cool. They're playing, him and Jackie Abbott are playing the Hydro, I think in December. I mean, that's pretty wild that they've got up to the Hydro, because they've kind of like, as Paul Keaton and Jackie Abbott doing the songs of Beautiful South, obviously, they've kind of built up a live audience doing those shows, and they've now got to Hydro level, which is pretty impressive, you know. And there is another sort of breakaway group that do the music of Beautiful South, which is like, you know, like the other members. So it's kind of like one of these, you know, UB40 scenarios where you've got two bands doing the same thing, but obviously everybody wants to hear the original voices of.
It's a shame. It's like New Order, isn't it? Got Peter Hook out there doing the New Order thing, and New Order still exist.
Yeah, that's weird.
You just want them all on the same stage, man.
Aye, definitely.
Come together, shake hands, get back on the stage.
Hopefully it'll happen Monday, but it doesn't look
Liam and Noel, it doesn't look as though that's happening now. Big Liam saying, he's not interested anymore. It's reverse psychology, isn't it?
I'm kind of the feeling that I don't know if I do want it to happen now, to be honest.
Well, you see the thing, JP, right? When it was the Stone Roses, the reason I wanted it to happen was because I was too young to see them the first time round.
Yeah.
But with Oasis, I grew up with Oasis. I've seen them various times. So I don't have the same appetite. But I understand younger fans who do, because I was the same with the Stone Roses. And I'd be the same with the Smiths, although that's never going to happen either.
Well, I was talking about this in the car on the way up. Arctic Monkeys. You know, the Arctic Monkeys audience isn't just all the people that were into them first time round. They've got like young folk that have got into Arctic Monkeys probably because of their mums and dads, and which is terrifying. But
I know.
So like they or maybe big brothers and sisters as well. So they've got an ability to play to a massive crowd of people because they've recycled their audience, which is the key thing to do if you're a musician. If you can get that kind of buy-in from a next generation, which is what Liam's done with his solo shows. It's not all, you know, it's not all guys with, you know, Liam Gallagher cuts that are cutting about. I mean, there's a lot of them, but it's not all of them.
What do they call them? Well ends?
Well ends, or my mate Vic calls them a cross between a Ned and a Mod, so a nod.
That
which
works.
Is inventive. You're not going to, it's not all with folk like that, you know, there's like, you know, teenagers and all sorts that are at a Liam Gallagher gig nowadays. So that's the key, isn't it? That's how you make your money.
Yeah, but for anyone who is sitting there with a Liam Gallagher-esque hairdo and wearing bowling shoes, you are welcome on Acsom. I mean, we are a podcast for all, open to all. Brown Warrior, gents, got pelters. This is the last talking point I wanted to bring up with you, JP. He got pelters for the goal last night for not picking up his runner, fair enough. But Starfelt failed to track a ball that is a big. That's a big free kick, 600 yards, and clear the danger, leaving himself totally outjumped. I think it was meant to be 60 yards. But we get your point, Brown Warrior. Thanks for coming in, because it is the final point. There was that one moment last night, which, you know, if we're going to pick away the bones of the victory, that's the one point that you thought, wow, we were exposed with just a big hoof up the park, JP. And it basically begs the question, who starts in the centre half? Because you quite rightly said at the very top of the show, that was Welsh and Jens for the first time. All four players, Jens, Welsh, Carter-Vickers, Starfelt, have all played with each other. Am I right in saying that? Starfelt comes on and plays with Jens. So they've all played with each other. And the question is, who partners Carter-Vickers against Rangers?
I mean, it surely will be Starfelt. I don't think... I mean, Starfelt came in and started on Sunday, right, against Dundee United. It was Carter-Vickers and Starfelt on Sunday. Yes,
it was, aye.
So you'd think, going by that logic, that they'll be playing on Saturday. I would have expected them to play on Saturday regardless who we were playing, to be honest. You know, just to reinforce that partnership ahead of Tuesday. I can't even believe the next time that I speak to you will have played Rangers in the league and Real Madrid in the Champions League.
We will have a few things to talk about.
Aye.
That is for sure. That is for certain.
The other thing from that Ange Postecoglou interview as well with the Saiferi and that, this was before the Champions League draw, and they asked him if he had any European teams that he'd kind of been interested in when he was younger, and he said Liverpool, but he said his dad was big on Real Madrid, and therefore because of his dad, he in turn liked Real Madrid as well. And so, I mean, I can only imagine how he felt. You know, I know he's quite an emotional guy and is kind of in football because of his dad. And so to get Real Madrid in the draw, you know, you can't get away from the fact that this is a guy that hasn't managed in that competition before, has never had the opportunity to, you know, be in amongst clubs like that, like getting to go to the Bernabeu as a manager of a football club, you know. Big.
I love that. I love that because that is sentiment, right? But I also love the fact that obviously Puskas played a massive part in Ange Postecoglou's managerial development as well. So the Real Madrid thing, it was written in the stars. But Sean comes in to remind us that Baldi scored the winner against Brendan Rodgers' Liverpool in Dublin. That's exactly what it was. I said Wembley. I was wrong. It makes it makes sense. It was in that Dublin get together between Celtic and Liverpool. Strange love the Doctor. I was in the Stone Roses place in York the other day. I've never been there actually, but I would like to. Visit and feed the bear. Has anyone seen the Australian Pink Floyd?
Yes.
Well, JP, you will have done. Without the best tribute band name I've ever seen, the Red Zeppelin. Right, they're a reggae Led Zeppelin tribute band. Dread Zeppelin. Check them out on YouTube.
Led Astray are a good one as well. They're a West Lothian-based Led Zeppelin tribute band, Led Astray, or as they jokingly name themselves, Led Ashtray. Australian Pink Floyd, unbelievable. Like I saw them at the Liquid Room in Edinburgh, so just when they were starting to sort of gain traction, and then they played Dave Gilmour's birthday party in his back garden, and he sang with them.
That's tremendous.
And they've also got a bunch of original Pink Floyd gear, like some lasers and lighting and all that. And now they're like hydro level. They play quite comfortably, play the hydro, and they're all at the top of their game in terms of musicianship. And the guy that sings nails it as both Roger Waters and Dave Gilmour. So yes, I have seen the Australian Pink Floyd and would heartily recommend them to anybody who is a fan of said band. Saw the original Floyd as well at Hyde Park in Live 8 for the Live 8 festival.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's in my top 10. They only played 4 songs, but it's in my top 10.
And Roger Waters is also sympathetic to Celtic. So there you go. We've tied it right back into having a Celtic state of mind. It's always an absolute pleasure. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. It is growing. If you want to support what a Celtic state of mind does, then buy some merch like this tracksuit top behind me. The link is underneath the video. And also, you can vote for us at this year's Football Content Awards. We have won, how many? 4? We've won 4, we've been nominated for 5, we've been a finalist on 5 occasions, and we're going this time for video content creators. So get voting for Acsom. Give us a wee night out down in Manchester, JP.
Is it Manchester, is it?
It's in Manchester this year, yeah. It was in Ali Pali, which was the scene of the Stone Roses' famous gig. The first time we went down, and then last year it was down in London, which is also where Ali Pali was, but this time it's Manchester. So, brilliant. Give us a wee vote and we'll keep doing what we're doing. Thank you everybody for getting involved, and thank you once again JP Mason for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.